All right, nice, easy, short one today. Let's go to kingdom number 2, kingdom Eubacteria. And Eubacteria, that's a prefix in Latin that means true or the real bacteria. So archae was the ancient ones, Eubacteria are the true bacteria. So this is going to be the kingdom of bacteria that you've all heard of for sure. Let's take a look at the characteristics real quick. Okay, they are all unicellular prokaryotes. You saw this on the last video. Prokaryotic cells do not have a what? Anybody remember? No nucleus, just a single piece of circular DNA. So if you have your notes at home, which you should, because you should pick them up today or tomorrow, kind of look that up in your notes from earlier. And then unicellular means that they're all one cell. Second thing, the cell walls of the Eubacteria contain peptidoglycan. Remember, that was the special protein. Oops, let me point out. That's the special protein right there that separates these guys into two kingdoms instead of the old classification, which was just one. So they have the protein in their cell wall. Archaebacteria do not. How do they reproduce? Asexual reproduction through binary fission. That's the same in all bacteria for the most part. And you guys remember, fission means to split. Binary means into two. So you take one cell, and you just split it into two. Real simple. Eubacteria can be autotrophic. That means self-food, or heterotrophic, different food. So some of them make their own food, and some of them get their food from an outside source. It is thought that Eubacteria may be the ancestors to mitochondria. Now, if you recall, a mitochondria is that specialized organelle in a true eukaryotic cell like we have that actually manufactures ATP. It's thought that at some point during evolution that a Eubacteria and a eukaryotic cell kind of came together and formed some type of symbiotic relationship, and then the Eubacteria that was living inside of our types of cells never left. And the evidence to that, if you guys remember, is that the mitochondria is the only organelle that has its own piece of what? I'll wait for it. DNA. Therefore, what can the mitochondria do on its own, independent of the rest of the cell? It can reproduce. So that's where, looking at DNA studies and, just logical progression through evolution, Eubacteria are thought to be the ancestors to mitochondria. Pretty cool. Examples. Now, I'm going to do a blanket statement here, real simple. I don't want you to get freaked out, okay? It's an example of a Eubacteria is every single bacteria pretty much on the planet that's not one of the weird, freaky archaebacteria. So I'm going to put this note up there. Every bacteria you have ever heard of, for the most part, is in this kingdom. Okay? Now I'm going to give you a couple of examples. You can look this up on the internet, but let's do a couple of specific examples. All right, now there's a picture. Those are actually spores formed by this type of bacteria. Okay? So the first example is an entire genus, not a species name, a genus. So it's a collection of bacteria that are similar in the genus Clostridium. There's the word right there. That's the genus name. And then there's specific ones like Clostridium botulinum and some other examples. Now, this family is famous because they are all obligate anaerobes. Who remembers what that means? I wish we were in class so somebody could tell me. That means they have to have no oxygen. So these are very limited run bacteria that can only live in very specific places. I mean, let's be honest, on our planet, most places have oxygen. But here's the interesting part. What do they cause? Watch this. This entire genus has different varieties of bacteria that cause botulism. Now, if you don't know what that is really, really serious food poisoning. And they create a neurotoxin that actually shut down your nervous system, and then their diaphragms don't work and they suffocate. It's pretty gruesome. Gangrene, you've heard of that, like internal infections, and tetanus. I'm sure you've all had your tetanus shot just in case you get a puncture wound into a deep muscular area. So that's pretty cool. Second example is also something you may have heard of, and it's called E. coli, Escherichia coli. Now, normally, these are actually found in your gut system. They're in your stomach. Lots of them, and they're harmless. They don't do anything. In fact, they actually help digest your food. But there are some versions of E. coli that have mutated, the really bad ones, and they can produce some toxins that can cause severe food poisoning, stomach cramps, diarrhea, dehydration, and for elderly people or anybody that's compromised, this could be pretty serious. And you hear E. coli all the time when they're doing food recalls like lettuce and romaine lettuce and tomatoes and things that are shipped in from other countries. Sometimes they have E. coli in them. So that's a real quick version of Eubacteria. We've already talked about bacteria in a lot of different other areas. So we'll pick up tomorrow with the next section on protists. And don't forget, make sure you're taking notes because the test is coming.